On today's episode, I want to start off talking about a stretch of the schedule for the Chicago Bulls that actually is at the start of the season that may be one of the most difficult starts of the season that we've seen for the Chicago Bulls in a while. Joe Cowley called it 3 weeks of hell. And yeah, that sounds about right because this isn't just a tough stretch of games. This is a stretch to start off a rebuild with a new promising young rookie, a new head coach. I think this is going to tell us a lot about the team, so we'll talk a little bit about that, plus Caleb Wilson's revenge tour, and we're going to dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform that we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. So, the Bulls have a 3-week stretch that I can only kind of explain as this is not only going to test the rebuild and if we can be ahead of schedule, but this is the perfect way to start off and tough. The rookies, the young players, the coach, everybody. This could be a stretch where the Bulls get punched in their face, and seeing how they rebuild from this, or rebound from this, I should say, is going to tell a lot about the season as well. Starting off a season with this type of stretch could really make or break your season, because if the Bulls get in over their heads of this, or if they get down on themselves, it can reverberate through the entirety of the rest of the season. If they deal with it well, even if they do come out of that with a losing record, but deal with it well, learn the right lessons, bind together as a team, it could actually help them get tougher as the season goes on. Over this stretch, right, this 10-game stretch that lasts from October 26th to November 10th, the Chicago Bulls are going to face off against the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, the Philadelphia 76ers, the San Antonio Spurs, the Atlanta Hawks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Cleveland Cavaliers all in that stretch, right? And of course, the stretch of the season opens up with the Chicago Bulls taking on Toronto, Milwaukee, and Washington on top of that. So it's a tough stretch. 6 of the first 8 games as well are on the road against the Chicago Bulls. So I think when you look at record, which of course record matters for if you make the play-in and stuff at the end of the season, the quality of play is what we're looking for more over this stretch of the Chicago Bulls. How well do they play? What do they learn from the beginning of the stretch to the end of the stretch is really going to be there. This isn't just about how many games the Chicago Bulls can win, because as we know, we're a rebuilding team, so it's not about that. But it is going to tell us a lot of what Bryson Graham has to fix. It's going to tell us about a lot of what this team has to still develop and grow through at the start of the season. And so I want to look at each of these matchups and what they tell us differently about the Chicago Bulls. First up, the Boston Celtics. This is going to be a team where it's not going to be just about running and gunning. You aren't going to be able to just run against this team. This is going to be a team that's going to try to force you in the half court. The thing that the Boston Celtics have been best at doing over this run and this stretch of great basketball from them is that they take away what the other team does best, and then they maximize in the margins on what they do best, right? Boston is going to try to force the team in the half court. That's what they did. Even without Jaylen Brown, they're still going to try to force opposing teams to be in the half court. So you're looking at this one and how many good possessions can we generate when transition offense disappears for the Chicago Bulls? One of the things about this team that can create easy offense is their transition play, right? But when you have a team that's purposely set out to take that away from you, then what do you have? Can Josh Giddey create enough in the half court, right? Can Modest Buzelis shoot enough in the half court without being in transition, right? Norman Powell's three-point shooting and gravity is going to be there as well in that one. And then Caleb Wilson and Nic Claxton. When there's no open floor there for them, what do they do this early on in the season as they are still learning for Caleb Wilson to play in NBA basketball and for Nic Claxton playing with this team, right? Good teams eventually tell you, you're not going to run up and down the court on us. Now, go out and execute some actual offense. And if the Bulls can get over that test and learn from that, that can do nothing but help them down the road, because while this is going to be a transition-heavy team and they're not going to stop being that heavily, you do have to learn how to create in the half court. That's what's going to give the Chicago Bulls this opportunity to do. And then the New York test, right? The other team in this one. That's the physicality test. in this for the Chicago Bulls. This is going to test whether Caleb Wilson, Miles Buzelis, Josh Giddey, and the whole team, especially the bench, can handle ugly basketball, because that is what this is probably going to devolve into, is very ugly basketball. New York Knicks are the reigning NBA champions, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the toughest opponent in the year, but they're also a very deep team. The wing stop that they have there, the way that they like to create, right? There's going to be a lot of contact in this game, a lot of physicality in this game, and that's something that Caleb is going to have to learn to deal with. That's something that Modest is still learning to deal with. That's something that Nic Claxton, as being a center that has the height but maybe a little bit slighter frame, he's going to have to deal with as well, right? So how we create against this playoff caliber team is going to be there. I do think there's going to be more transition opportunities here against this team, especially with how they've changed over the course of the offseason. But this is going to be an ugly game, and this is the type of game that you're going to see, all right, how can you perform when the game does get ugly? And we're going to see that part. The Philly part of it, the 76ers, the new look 76ers that have added Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, as well as some bench players, and they're trying to gear it up for it. This is a team that's going to try to overwhelm you with star power from start to finish. That's what they're going to try to do, overwhelm you with power. So the Bulls are going to not only have to try to figure out how to solve Tyrese Maxey's speed, especially against Josh Giddey, but then Joel Embiid's probably going to be healthy at the start of the season. You have Jaylen Brown and the way that he exploits mismatches. And oh, by the way, you have LeBron James, who's going to be able to create and elevate the other players on this team as well. And I didn't even mention VJ Edgecombe going into his second year, right? I think this is going to be one of the games where Nic Claxton, Zach Collins, Jalen Smith, right, whatever we have is going to be really important defensively in this game to try to slow down Joel Embiid, LeBron, and Jaylen Brown is going to be really there, right? And then you have a rematch 6 days after your initial matchup against them, and that's going to tell us what you can do to adjust in those games, because you play them twice in such a condensed amount of time. Listen, if you look exactly the same way you do in game 2, negatively, right? Like, if it's positively, we come out here and beat the Philadelphia 76ers and look the same in game 2, that's great. But, like, if we do struggle, if we don't learn from our struggles against this team in the first game versus the second game that we face off against them, that's going to tell us a lot about this team. It's going to be a little bit concerning about this team. Now, because it is still early on, you don't want to make these hardline takes on it, but it is something that you have to look at for, right? And so, Philly, like, the star power there is going to be there. And the Bulls, we're trying to develop our own stars here, so that's the thing. And then the San Antonio Spurs matchup, the rebuild blueprint, the modern-day rebuild blueprint, if you're looking at that in a way, right? This is where Chicago is going to have to face off against another young team, and they're going to see what an elite young team looks like. A team that's found a way, even through still being extremely young and most of your core still being sub-25, they found a way to be elite. Now, they have players outside of that are older than 25, but still, San Antonio is the model of how a young team can progress. I just think that, right? I think them, Detroit, and Houston to a degree, those are like how young teams can progress quicker than normal. We talked on yesterday's episode how ESPN predicted the Bulls 2032 until week 10, right? These are teams that you look at that. So looking at the developmental gap between the Chicago Bulls and the San Antonio Spurs here is going to be really important, right? How does Caleb Wilson and Modest, again, their physicality, their length, how do you deal with a player like Wemby, who's going to try to take everything the best way from that you do best? He's going to try to take the rim from you completely, right? And so you're looking at, how much of your young core can deal with their young core. And I think that's it. Like, again, this isn't about wins or losses right now, right? If you can get and eke out some wins, great, do that. But this is about the quality of play. That no matchup, I think, in this one is more important than the quality of play in this. Do we scramble against this? Do we actually have a system against this, right? Don't just watch Bulls versus Spurs for the win-loss. Watch because of the gap between these two teams and a sign of where hopefully the Chicago Bulls can go, especially if that potential star power that we see with this team turns into actualized star power for this team. And there you go. The next team, Atlanta. This is another team that's young. I didn't mention them in it. They're building around Jalen Johnson now. And this is a team that was tough, scrappy, real good last season. And this is one of those major games. This is going to be a major Josh Giddey game. And I say that to say not everything is going to be on him, but this is a team that's perfectly kind of pictured and structured defensively to take away what Josh Giddey does best and what comes easiest to Josh Giddey and make the game more difficult on him. They're going to force Josh Giddey to shoot the jumper. Is that jumper still real? I think that it will be, but it's going to be there, right? How can we create outside of transition as well? The half court. That's what the Atlanta Hawks are going to try to do in regards to this one. The Bulls want to be this long, fast, physically aggressive, versatile transition team. The problem is the Atlanta Hawks also want to play that exact same way. So it's going to be a match of similar styles and see who can take what away from the other team. And that's what I'm really excited about this one. And then next up, the Minnesota Timberwolves in that stretch. The depth test for the Chicago Bulls. How well can our depth handle them, right? We play the Minnesota Timberwolves the night after we play Atlanta. And so that on a back-to-back, this is where you need your young players to step up off the bench between Dalen Swain, Leonard Miller, Jalen Smith, Rob Dillingham. Of course, we know Trey Jones and those type of guys, but who steps up? You're going to need to rely on your bench, especially with as many back-to-backs as the Chicago Bulls have in this one as well. So this is going to be one of those tests to see, do the Chicago Bulls have actually 9 to 10 trustworthy players that they can trust in and night out? And we're going to see that. This is where the depth on the roster sheet stops looking like possible depth and has to show itself to be actualized depth for the Chicago Bulls, and we're going to see that. And then the matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers, the interdivision matchup. I'm excited to see us against all the teams in the division, between the Bucks, because of their being in a rebuild, the Cavs, which we're going to talk about, the Indiana Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton coming back, and the Detroit Pistons, the number one team in the East per record last season, right? When you look at this one, the Cleveland Cavaliers closed this difficult 10-game stretch for the Chicago Bulls. And by then, the Bulls would have played contenders. They would have had rematches. We would have had road stretches. We would have had home games. We would have played NBA Cup games, all that type of stuff, right? And so this is the perfect example of why you don't want to judge this stretch just by the record. You want to evaluate them on the quality of play and how they do with the bench, the starting five, all those type of things. A young team can lose a competitive game to a contender and still show more than a team than it does beating a bad team. And that's what you're trying to look at in this game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And while I know some people are down on the Cavs, and I definitely understand that because James Harden's on that team. Y'all know how I feel about James Harden, but we'll see, right? And I think overall, like when you look at the zoom out at the bigger, 3-week thing for the Chicago Bulls, the Bulls could have a mediocre record coming out of this to even a bad record, but still feel encouraged by the way that they play over this. If Caleb Wilson looks legitimate, if Miles Buzelis looks better like he's making a step, if Josh Giddey looks more comfortable, their shot looks legit, if the defense looks solid, and if Tiago Splitter just over this time, that's where you can walk away from this 3-week stretch really, really encouraged, even if your record isn't the best. And we'll see what the Bulls are going to do in that. The second story that I want to talk about here, though, is the Caleb Wilson revenge tour. I just want to look at this, right? We, AJ DeBonce, of course, went number 1 to Washington, Darren Peterson to Utah, Cam Boozer to Memphis, Caleb Wilson number 4 to the Chicago Bulls, right? The Bulls have now 8 games against those 3 other rookies on the schedule, right? And that's going to be the important part of it, right? When you look at the Wilson versus AJ DeBonce thing, we face them October 24th at the United Center. That's our home opener, right? That's going to be a big game, and this is going to be a game where Caleb Wilson can show his two-way impact on the Bulls and how that's going to help this team win basketball games is going to be there. The creation, the defense, all those type of things. You don't have to outscore AJ DeBonce, but out-impact AJ DeBonce. That's what I want to see from this team. Then you have Caleb Wilson versus Darren Peterson, right? Of course, Peterson is a guard. We don't know how much they're going to guard each other, right? But I think overall in this one is that while Peterson's scoring may win headlines, how much of Caleb Wilson's two-way play actually win basketball games? That's what we need. We don't need Caleb Wilson to be the better scorer. We need him to be the better overall NBA player, and I can't wait to see what he does against Darren Peterson. And then Caleb Wilson versus Cam Boozer. This is going to be a big one. Shout out to my boy Undisputed, who is a huge Cam Boozer fan, but this is going to be a fun one in this one, right? The individual performance is going to be there. Cam Boozer is going to have more offense go through him. He's going to be probably the engine of what the Memphis Grizzlies do next season, and that's fine, right? But I think when you look at the game, even in Summer League, Caleb got the numbers, but Boozer got the win. We need to find a way to get the win, right? And that's it, right? And I think when you look at these matchups against the rookie, like one head-to-head matchups don't always matter in Rookie of the Year voting, but it does to me say a lot of how he measures up against his peers, and that's the part I'm really excited to see what Caleb Wilson does in that one. Let me know what you guys think about the Caleb Wilson revenge tour and the rookie matchups. Let me know what you guys think on that part down below. With that said, we got 4 voicemails that I want to get into today. This first one that we got for today, as I'm stalling time to bring up the voicemails, the first voicemail that we got for today, this one's from Vaughn.
What's up, bro? This is Savon. Hey, man, before I start, man, I want to say what I'm about to, reference. Y'all got to join that Discord, man. Y'all got to join that Chicago Bulls Central Discord, man. Chi-Town Sports Central. Go ahead and see. Got my own little section there, Vaughn Basketball Ops. But what I wanted to bring up, bro, is the potential that Bryson Graham has to involve himself in a lot of different avenues in terms of restricted free agency with the other teams. Not necessarily even just taking on this restricted free agent, but also just using his leverage that he has with that open roster spot and that room mid-level exception. The first things first, they have that interest in Benedict Mathurin. Maybe they go after him, maybe they don't. I don't know. But maybe there's something to be worked out there with, the Clippers getting Peyton Watson, maybe absorbing Zeke Naji from the Nuggets if the Clippers don't want to do it. And then, in turn, taking Benedict Mathurin, a guy like Zach Collins who just got signed, he's somebody that can be flipped instantly. So it's possible. It's very tough because, I don't know exactly what the Nuggets want. They're right above the second apron, so maybe there's a little bit of relief that, Bryson can grant them while also getting a player that he's kind of interested in. But if not, my question overall to you is, Jordan Hawkins, I know you talked about Jordan Hawkins before. The Pelicans are interested in Benedict Mathurin. If they were able to have someone absorb Jordan Hawkins into the cap space, they would be able to open up their full mid-level and go after a guy like Benedict Mathurin. You could use that as a leverage play against the Clippers. Like, yo, if you don't want to work with us, we'll go over to the Pelicans, absorb Jordan Hawkins for a couple seconds, and, they can go ahead and sign him outright. But my question to you is, if we were to get a guy like Jordan Hawkins, how much do you think Norman Powell could help him, considering, they are both shooters? Jordan Hawkins has had up and down years, but how much do you think Norman Powell could help a guy like Jordan Hawkins? And do you think he'd be a solid fit? But let me know what you think, all right? Peace.
The Bulls have maximized their flexibility, no doubt. I don't think anybody can say that they haven't. They have a chance to be involved in a lot of different level of deals, types of deals for. They can play the third team. They can go out and get help a team create cap space, and then go after get a free agent. You could do a lot of that. But part of what I will cover on tomorrow's episode actually is going to be, should the Bulls be saving their assets rather than for mediocre deals to take a swing on a star, which they may need to do in the next year or two if we actually are ahead of schedule. So to keep an eye out for that. But as far as your question about Hawkins, I think that Norman Powell would be a great mentor for Hawkins. When you look at how Norman Powell has had to claw his way up the ranks in the NBA, I think he'd be a great mentor for somebody like Hawkins. And I think that, Powell's path could reflect kind of Hawkins' path in a lot of ways. So, yeah, if you have that chance to have that mentor for him, why not do it? All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Jamal.
What's up, Haize? Your boy Jamal back again. Another voicemail, 2 minutes. Let's get into it. So earlier I tried to leave you a voicemail, but ended up getting distracted. Somebody needed my assistance. Everything was all good. But basically I was talking about Nolan Powell's statement where he stated the Bulls have a chance of being either really good or really bad. I think any realistic Bulls fan will tell you that that's a perfectly fair assessment. At this point in time, we have a bunch of young players who have not really accomplished much or learned how to win at all, and it's gonna take time. I'm not as good as Caleb looks to be at this moment in time. He's still a rookie, and there's not really been that many rookie players throughout NBA history that have been able to come in and instantly change your franchise from being a first round, a lottery pick to a damn near championship contender team, right? And so let's not put too much expectation on these players. Let's see what this year brings us. Hopefully, with Nolan Powell and a lot of these other veterans on there, they can teach these young boys how to truly win. But it's just going to take time. And if anything, we're Bulls fans. Man, we haven't been good since Derrick Rose. We had some flashes with the DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine team, but we should be used to this at this point. We know what to expect. We know that we might come in this season being straight ass. We're looking at this from the perspective of how do these players develop and how good what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are and things like that. So let me know what you think. As always, see you later. Peace.
Norman Powell's comments are real. Nothing more, nothing less. They're just real. They're honest, right? And I think a lot of Bulls fans will be honest in that. And saying we have the chance to be a really good team. We have the chance to struggle as a team, right? And when you have rookies and young players that you're still trying to learn, grow, and develop on top of a, first-time permanent head coach that also, like, this team is focused on development and evaluation, it's there. There's a learning curve that's going to be there for this team that they're going to have to grow through and grow with, and we'll see how they go. But there is a chance, like I said at the top of the show, the gauntlet that they have to go through to start the season off could end up being what forms the identity for them later on in the season. There's a chance of that. And we'll see how that ends up working out for this team. But overall, I'll say I'm excited to see the path and seeing these young players grow. That's gonna be the fun part. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Track.
Yo, Haize, this is Trav calling from East Hampton, Connecticut. I've been listening to your show for probably about, close to a few months. I've been a long-time Bulls fan for over 10 years, and I'm just looking forward to this season. I think we're going to have a really good season, even though that we are young, but that's the point, is to watch a good young team develop. It's just like when you have a kid and you watch a kid just grow with you. I'm really excited for the season, and I hope we do really well this year, even though we are young, as I have said, but I have high hopes for this team. I have high hopes for Caleb to hit. I have high hopes for Modest Buzelis to make his third year leave. Josh Giddey to finally have a good, balanced team to actually unlock his potential and unlock the other roster's potential. I think Norman Powell will be very, very well for the younger guy, seeing as he has seen the league from rookie to an all-star to playoff to an eventual title champion. And I think we're going to have a really good year. So I'll be off my voicemail one inside of the mailbag, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again. Have a good one.
Watching a young team should be fun, right? Watching a young team grow should be fun. I know it's not the quickest path, and people want to see like the Bulls just get and become this contender, go after this star, that star, stuff like this. But watching a team learn to become a winning team and having the young players grow and develop, that's the quickest way to sustainability. That may not be the quickest path, but it's the most sustainable path. And that's what I think we want here. That's what I think Bryson Graham is trying to build towards, sustainability. Because if you just have a couple of years of being a winning team and you're right back in it, what have you really done there unless you've won a title over that time? What the Bulls seem like they're doing now is taking the longer path, which is the most sustainable path, and let's get there and let's see what's going to happen. They're going to have to go out there and prove it, but let's see what happens with it. All right, let's get into this last voicemail for today, man. This one's from Sir.
What's up, Haize? Yo, my name's Sir, bro, and I've been following your content for a while. I just want to say I appreciate you. And, hey, yo, man, you out here, you like a breath of fresh air. Like I said, I know I don't know you, but just watching you and everything, yo, you're better than majority of all these cats out here. They just got some other narrative that they pushing. You pushing what you believe and what you love, and that's why we respect you in the community. We love you, man. You doing great. Hey, another thing, like, hey, I'll just be responding. I like to respond to your videos, and like one of the things was like Nic Claxton. Nic Claxton, I just felt like we should have got more on that deal because, hey, we speculating into what he can be and what he should be and how they change their system, and he will fit ours. But to take that money on, I just felt like, hey, you should have got something out of it. I know, hey, in my opinion, Bryson Graham just wanted the guy, and he got what he wanted and got what he needed. I'm cool with it. But the business side of it just seems like past seasons, you should have got more. But I know how things are changing in this spectrum of this year, and that's the first year of how things are going. It is, hey, whatever. But you keep up the content, keep doing what you're doing, and keep staying true to yourself, bro. Appreciate your videos. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the love. Definitely appreciate that. I'm just a guy who loves his team, has a little bit of basketball IQ, right? I'm just a guy that I love my teams. And so, this has been a journey, but it's been a labor of love, and that's why I've never gotten tired of doing it. We're coming up on 1,900 straight days of me doing this show. 1,900 straight days of me doing this show. It's exciting, man. I get excited. I get every day that I wake up and come down here and set up today's episode and stuff, and that day's episode, it's exciting for me. I never get tired of doing this. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it, and hopefully you continue to enjoy it, man. But as far as that, I think you know my thoughts on the Nic Claxton. I've made it clear, right? Like, because the Bulls were never going to get a first. So, like, if getting an additional second-round pick makes or breaks that trade for you, I mean, like, I'm not saying for you specifically. I'm just saying in general. Okay, cool. It just doesn't make or break it for me. Like, if you would have got another second-round pick, okay, cool. Like, that's how I would have looked at it. But the prize was still Nic Claxton and stylistically what he brings to this team. So, because you were never going to get a first. You were never going to get a first when you look at the landscape of how this offseason played out. So, the most you would have got is a second, maybe two. And that just doesn't make or break the trade for me personally. So, we'll see what happens, though. But, like I said, I can understand anybody who has the perspective like you share that, hey, we should have got more back. I can understand that. And I don't think I won't knock that at all. But at the end of the day, Nic Claxton was the prize in that one, and we'll see how he ends up playing for the Bulls this season. But that's going to do it for today's episode, y'all. Make sure you guys sound off down below on all the topics. How do you feel about the 3 weeks from hell that we're starting off the season with? How do you feel about the Caleb Wilson Revenge Tour? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.